Welcome to the Shoulda Bet More podcast presented by Go Boys, a bonus edition. We'll talk a little Oscars today with Adnan Virk, talk a little Oscars, some MLB. So excited to talk to him because look, if it doesn't matter if it's sports or Oscars, if it pays, it pays. And we see if we can find some value. I know people bet this stuff, whether it's pools or just betting it straight up. DraftKings does have markets in certain states. So we will talk to him about that, see if we can uncover a few gems. But before we get to Adnan, just some news and notes quickly here. I'll touch on the football. Start with baseball, though. Lucas Giolito for the Red Sox. Looks like he's got a UCL injury. He's probably going to be out for the year. 79.5 is the win total for the Red Sox. I would go under. The Red Sox and the Mets really sort of in the same position where they went into the year with not much pitching to begin with. The Mets, especially with Senga and then nobody else that you trust, that you like. And Senga's hurt. He'll be back at some point, you'd think, but shoulder fatigue, not going to be ready for opening day. We'll see when he's back. And now the Red Sox might lose Giolito for the year. So to me, I'd play the under. Just no pitching. Now they'll hit. Devers is just about as good as anybody in the sport offensively. And that ballpark is conducive to scoring runs. And Cora is a good manager, so he always does a little more with less. He's a really good manager. But my goodness, in that division where the Yankees are going to be pretty good, I think they'll be really good as they can get some pitching. They got some questions back in the bullpen, but they'll be able to score some runs. I like what the Yankees are bringing to the table this year with Judge and Soto. How could you not? And Cole, and then we'll see what else in the rotation. But Yankees are going to be good. Rays are always pretty good, despite the fact that no McClanahan, no Franco. They just always seem to piece together 85, 90 plus wins. I mean, more than 85. So the Rays, with their organization, with their infrastructure, you think are going to win a lot of games, and they're always going to be competitive. Toronto, probably a 90-something win team. And then Baltimore won 100 last year, and they have all these young players from maybe the most talented young team in the league when you take into account the games they won last year, all the young draft picks, all the young prospects. So the Red Sox are really in for a rough season. And I would say the same about the Mets, where it's hard to have bad pitching in a good division. I mean, it's just the math doesn't add up. You play so many games against division opponents, 14 games against each division opponent. So if you're the Red Sox, you're looking at 56 games against the Yankees, Rays, Blue Jays, Orioles. That is a lot. So under on the Red Sox, I think is a good one at 79.5. I'd expect that to tick down. Now, maybe this prompts them to go out and get Snell or get Montgomery, but if you weren't interested in those guys before, are you really going to be interested now? Like, do you really think you're a contender? You're going to go out and spend money to maybe flirt with a back of a wild card? It just doesn't seem like their MO anymore. They're very conservative in terms of the money. Seems like they're saving their money for whatever, a soccer team, NBA team. I've seen the headlines, but I don't really read into what they're saving their money. But they've become very frugal, starting back with the Mookie Betts unwillingness to give him a contract. So Red Sox in for a long year, and you can put the Mets in the same category. Just in good divisions with no pitching. So that's the baseball. Acuna as well has a knee issue. Looks like it could have been worse news. Should be ready for opening day, but that's always something to keep an eye on. When you're betting these futures, awards, any of that stuff, you want to at least make sure your guy makes it to opening day. I know you see a number and you say, hey, I'm going to grab it now, but you still have a month for the guy to get hurt. At least I like to not always, but I like to at least usually wait until right around when the season starts. So at least I know he's starting the season healthy, because that's another thing too. When you're betting these over under for season long stuff, home runs, RBI, strikeouts, like injuries are somewhat baked into the line, but I don't think they're fully baked in, where people like to bet over on stuff. They want to root for homers and strikeouts and fun stuff, where look, it's a long season, 6 months, 162 games. You're playing every day. There's a lot of ways to get hurt, and you miss 2 or 3 weeks. It's very hard to go over some of these numbers for some of these guys. So keep that in mind when you're betting that stuff. Quickly on the football, it looks like Cousins is probably going to go to Atlanta. I know the market favorite to land him was him going back to Minnesota. So Minnesota was the favorite to retain Cousins. Mike Florio reported yesterday from NBC that Kirk Cousins is prepared to move his family to Atlanta. It looks like Atlanta would be a fit with him, which I guess makes some sense. I mean, you're not winning a Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins. We know that he's a good player, but there is a ceiling there. But if you put him with Bijan Robinson, pretty good defense, the guys they've gotten in the first round, Drake London, Pitts, all that in that division, could you win 10 or 11 games, win a playoff game, and then who knows? Absolutely. So I get it. Now, you're going to pay him whatever they're going to pay him. I don't know, $50 million a year. That might have priced the Vikings out of here, but it does look like Cousins to Atlanta is at least a possibility, if not a likely scenario here. So that raises the next question: is Where's Fields go? Because I think a lot of people assumed Fields was going to Atlanta, and I don't know that Pittsburgh's interested. If Pittsburgh's not interested, I don't know where that leaves them. I mean, does one of these teams that whiffs on a quarterback in the draft wait until May and say, all right, we'll take Fields, or does Fields? I don't think Chicago would keep him. I just think that would be too much controversy if you draft Caleb Williams one and you have Fields on the team. Every time Caleb Williams has a bad game, Fields is pretty popular in Chicago. I just think everyone is going to be, calling for Caleb Williams every time he overthrows a guy on third down. People are going to be chanting for Fields. I don't think they would do that to a guy they're investing this much in Caleb Williams in. So I don't think that's a possibility, but I don't know that it's a certainty that Fields is a starter week one somewhere. Now, maybe somebody trades for him as a very decorated backup. I guess that's possible. But I guess I would say it's like 50-50 he's a starter next year. All it takes is one team, the Patriots, I don't know, Steelers, Broncos, Raiders. Somebody bites, Vikings. I don't know. Here's the thing with Fields. You can argue about how good he is. I think he's a limited player. He's a talented player, but he's limited. You're going to have to pay him pretty soon because he's going into his fourth year in the league. He's only won like 10 games his entire career. You could say it's a situation. There's some truth to that. The flashy plays do look good, but you're going to have to pay him pretty soon. So you're going to have to give up a pick and then pay him. I just don't know that these teams who are very much more analytically driven than in the past. I know the Vikings guy's a big analytic guy. Like a lot of these guys that are GMs, they're younger guys. They're analytically driven, and they're going to look at the sacks, the turnovers, the money they're going to have to pay him. And they're going to say, you know what? I don't want to give up a draft pick and have to pay this guy for a guy who I'm not sure I can win a Super Bowl with. I'd be very surprised if, he's one of the handful of guys you could win a Super Bowl with. So we'll see where he ends up. Not a lock that he's a starter somewhere. Cousins maybe to Atlanta, and then we'll go from there. I have no idea. I guess I would assume Caleb Williams does go one, and then Washington picks whatever quarterback they like better at two. And then it gets interesting at three, where New England, maybe they like any of the quarterbacks, and whoever drops to them at three, they're fine with. Or maybe they say, you know what? If the guy doesn't fall to us that we want, that we like, let's say we love Daniels, but Daniels goes two and we're lukewarm on May. Do they just say, you know what? We'll take a quarterback just to take one, and we'll take May, or we'll take maybe McCarthy, who's possibly moving up? Or do they just say, you know what? We're not going to reach. We're a long way away. We'll trade back. We'll get a bunch of assets and we'll play it that way. So I don't know. Don't have a great feel for it now. We'll obviously talk more draft as it gets a little closer, like 6 weeks away. So it'll be here before you know it. Once you get into the tournament, March Madness, baseball starting, the draft will be here pretty quickly. So fun time of the year, but let's talk a little baseball. Let's talk a little Oscars with Adnan Virk. That is next. This is the Shoulda Bet More podcast. All right, we are back. Shoulda Bet More podcast. Very excited to talk to this man. You can hear him at MLB Network, Cinephile. He does great work both places. It is the great Adnan Virk. Adnan, what's up, man? Thanks for coming on.
Well, it's my pleasure. It's great to see you, man. I've said before that I'm reluctant when people just reach me out of the blue unless you give a name drop. So first and foremost, shout out to Chris Felica. Since you texted me, Felica's your boy. I said I'm not going to turn that down. Then Felica's going to be a bad name. He's going to bad mouth in the business. So a pleasure to chat with you. And I'm glad that Felica's are common terrain. He's all-time great guy, and I'm thrilled for all his success. Obviously, not only at ESPN, but now Fox.
And I have my Lombardi line little pullover here. So I'm a guest on Lombardi line, and I co-host for him too. So we've both had to deal with Michael Lombardi. So we're both in that camp. We'll get right into it here. We'll do a little baseball. We'll do a little Oscars.
Let me quickly tell you, Lombardi, he has no idea who I am. And the only way that I endeared myself to him was by we love The Sopranos. So we literally just did like a fake kind of podcast. And once I got on The Sopranos, I'm like, this guy is straight out of central casting for Jersey, right? Springsteen, Sopranos, those are the ways to his heart. He's the best.
You can just shoot him random Sopranos lines at any point, the most obscure lines too, and he loves it. Really? Here's a couple bucks, go buy a soda. That one from Finn. I mean, just he loves the most obscure ones.
Yeah, there was one. You're right. He texted one to me, wanted me to meet somebody. He goes, "This is Adnan's number. Go buy him a sandwich, anything you like," which is a reference. Great.
All right. If you look at the odds here, it looks like Oppenheimer is in for a big day. A monster favorite, best picture, best actor, best director, best supporting actor. We'll just start with best picture. Any chance Oppenheimer does not win the best picture here?
No, it's going to happen. Poor Things is nominated for 11 Academy Awards. I believe it has the second best odds, but it would be an upset of epic proportions to have that win. Oppenheimer is going to be the one to win. I think overall, I think I've got it winning 8 Oscars. I have to double check my ballot, but that'd be the most since Slumdog Millionaire did so way back when. So it's been a while since we've had a juggernaut like that. The Oscars, especially the past few years, have tried to spread it out a little bit, be a little bit more democratic in their approach of giving everyone a prize, kind of like Oprah, you win a car, you win a car. So they've been kind of giving out the Oscars more fruitfully. But yeah, I can't anticipate a scenario where Oppenheimer doesn't win Best Picture or Nolan doesn't win Best Director. Those are probably the two biggest locks of the night.
So do you do projections? Do you predict every single category?
Yeah, so in the latest episode of Cinephile, I went through each category and I said should win and will win. Of course, I care much more about should win because it's my opinion, but I do try to predict what will win, looking at the odds. And of course, my old friends at goldderby.com, where I used to be one of the analysts there, so I look at what they're doing. So yeah, I do not only what I think should win, but also what will win.
Historically, has the Oscars been has it been upset heavy? Is it mostly chalk? Do you get a few upsets sprinkled in there? How would you characterize, the just the history of what we see here in the Oscars?
It's mostly chalk, but what happens is you do get a jaw-dropping upset once in a while, which is always really good, and that's really what I think helps sustain the drama around the Oscars. Like if you love movies, you love the Oscars, period. So a guy like me is always going to be into it. But I think for people who are casual fans, not to stereotype, maybe some women like the red carpet. Some people just like the pageantry. Some people are there for the monologue and Jimmy Kimmel. I'm there for the speeches. I think speeches are really what memorable, that you remember what people said about certain moments or family members or their loved ones. Like I think that really is what resonates most for me. I love the montages as well, when you pay tribute to all the great movies that have come out this year, but also in the past. But I do think the upsets are a big part of it. And generally speaking, it goes chalk. So, for example, this year, I mentioned those two for picture and director. Two more locks, supporting actress Davine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers and Robert Downey Jr. for supporting actor. They're both in the bag. Like, I'd be shocked if they didn't happen. But having said that, once in a while you will get an upset. So Marcia Gay Harden, who was terrific in the movie Pollock, she won Best Supporting Actress, came out of nowhere because she was not nominated for any of the previous acting categories previously, named the Screen Actors Guild Award, the BAFTA, the Golden Globe. So what's happened is, honestly, Will, there's less upsets because I think people pay more attention to the Golden Globes, to the SAG Awards, the BAFTAs, the British Academy Awards, and so they have a better idea of what to bet on. But there's still these shockers. And Marcia Gay Harden wasn't even nominated. How about even a couple of years ago? Chadwick Boseman was supposed to win Best Actor posthumously for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. As you know, Best Picture is always the last category. This year, they did Best Actor as the last category. Everyone assumed Chadwick Boseman was going to win, impactful moment. You look up at the skies. Instead, Best Actor is Anthony Hopkins for The Father. Shocking. Came off the top rope. Anthony Hopkins was asleep in Wales. He's one of our great actors. He was not expecting that win. So you will get, I feel like if you and I are talking next week, there's going to be at least one or two moments you go, wow, I did not see that coming. And I hope it happens.
Best actor, Murphy, huge favorite. Best actress is Gladstone, Killer of the Flower Moon, big favorite. Either of those have any chance of not winning?
Yeah, so I do think so. I mentioned the supporting ones are locks, but I do think actor and actress makes things interesting. So Cillian Murphy and one of my favorite actors, the incredible Paul Giamatti, both won Best Actors at the Golden Globe. So Murphy won Best Actor for drama, and Giamatti won for comedy or musical. So they go to the Critics' Choice Awards, where I was at in Los Angeles, and Giamatti wins that. So now he surges ahead. But then Cillian Murphy wins the BAFTA, and then he also just won the SAG Award. The Screen Actors Guild is the biggest branch of the Academy. There's 10,000 members voting for the awards, and all the ballots have been cast. But about 2,500 of those are actors. I mean, a good quarter of those. So if you win the SAG, you have a pretty good chance of winning the Academy Award, which is why Cillian Murphy's the favorite. Again, Oppenheimer's going to win 8 Academy Awards. He's the face of the movie. He is the name of the title. It's a very immersive performance, so it's tough to not see him winning. But I wouldn't be shocked if Giamatti wins. He's a beloved actor. He's a veteran character actor for a long time. He was snubbed for Sideways, which he probably should have been, if not even nominated, perhaps even won. So I wouldn't be astounded if Giamatti wins, but it makes sense that Murphy is the favorite. Why I'm picking to win, although I think Paul should win. But supporting actress is still interesting because both Lily Gladstone and Emma Stone win the Golden Globes. Again, comedy or musical versus drama for Lily Gladstone. Then the Critics' Choice Awards, Emma Stone wins. Then the BAFTA, Emma Stone wins. Lily Gladstone wasn't even nominated. So now Emma Stone's the favorite, but then Lily Gladstone won the SAG Award, and now she's a slight favorite. So I would put it at 60-40% Lily wins, but probably the closest of the acting races right now. I wouldn't quite say a coin flip. I think Lily's in the lead, but I wouldn't be shocked if Emma Stone wins.
Interesting. Any other opinion you'd say that's unconventional where you think, most people think a certain person's going to win and you have a different opinion?
Well, I'll tell you a couple of the tightest categories, I think that it's going to be a little bit tricky with some of these awards because Poor Things is up for 11 Academy Awards and is certainly a terrific movie. But Barbie, was in many ways the movie of the year. I mean, we had $1.4 billion, It was obviously a huge conversational talking point. Barbenheimer, in addition to Oppenheimer. So I'm curious if Barbie wins or Poor Things wins for a couple of these type of categories. Production design is the tightest category. I don't know what the odds are right now. You tell me. But I went on goldderby.com and they've got 11 experts picking Barbie, 11 experts picking Poor Things. It's a dead heat. And I still keep going back and forth. I think it's going to be Barbie. I think that'll be the one it gets. But again, that's a coin flip of Poor Things. And I believe it should be Killers of the Flower Moon. I had Jack Fisk on my podcast. He's obviously a legend, work with Terrace Malick, all the rest of it. The other one is costume design. Again, that's a really good race between Poor Things and between Barbie. So again, I think they like to split the difference a little bit. I think Poor Things wins for costume design. I think Barbie wins for production design, but both those races are very, very close. Costume design and production design.
What's the one category? And we'll get you a few baseball ones before you get you out of here. What's the one category where you're just fascinated, where you can't wait to see who wins on Sunday, that you really feel the least good about?
Well, actor is the one, because I adore Giamatti. I want to see him win, but I don't think I will. But I will say the other one is the writing original screenplay, because I had David Hemmingson on my podcast, Cinephile, and he was phenomenal. And The Holdovers is my second favorite movie of the year, behind Killers of the Flower Moon. So I'm really pulling hard for David, because he was a great guest on my pod and a good dude. But I do think the winner is going to be Anatomy of a Fall, Justine Triet and Arthur Harari. I think they're going to win for original screenplay. And adapted screenplay I also think is tricky. I'm really hoping it's going to be American Fiction, which is up for 5 Oscars. Jeffrey Wright getting his first Best Actor nomination. Sterling K. Brown for Supporting Actor nomination. American Fiction should win something, and I'm really hoping it does win for adapted screenplay. I believe it's the slight favorite right now, ahead of Christopher Nolan, and I really hope Cord Jefferson wins. So I've got a real keen eye on both those writing categories: American Fiction for adapted and The Holdovers for original screenplay.
I know a lot of people feel very strongly that Godzilla -1 will win for best visual effects. Do you agree with that?
That's one of the few movies I haven't seen, Will. I know my friend Alpha was texting me earlier, going, "Oh my God, I can't believe there's one movie you haven't seen." But I believe it will win. Yeah, I've got it. I think Napoleon should. It's one of the Napoleon, I thought, was a really misunderstood film. It got very mixed reviews, and I didn't think it was kind of mixed reviews with audiences, but I thought it was compelling in a lot of ways, despite the fact it did have some flaws. So if I had to vote, I'd go Napoleon. But I do think it's going to be Godzilla -1, which is a big blockbuster, and no less an authority than Steven Spielberg. When he met the director of Godzilla -1 at one of these Oscar luncheons, told him, "I loved your film. It was one of my favorite movies of the year." So you got a guy like Spielberg endorsing that. I do think Godzilla -1 is going to win for visual effects.
If somebody's listening to this and say, "Hey, I'm busy. I'm watching sports. I'm doing whatever. I haven't seen any of these movies." What's one movie? Hey, you have to see this movie. One movie you'd recommend out of all of them?
Well, the one that I'd say is the best, and my favorite, is Killers of the Flower Moon. It's absolute genius from Martin Scorsese, who gets nominated again. It's a record for Scorsese. It's the most director nominations of any living director. He eclipses Spielberg by 1, 10-time nominee for Best Director for Marty. And I just thought it was so impactful and harrowing and emotional and just so powerful. And DiCaprio was snubbed for Best Actor. I thought he should have been nominated. I hope Lily wins for Actress. That'd be a great sign for the movie. And the incredible Robert De Niro, one of my favorite actors of all time. He's nominated for Best Supporting Actor. That's his first nomination since Silver Linings Playbook. I think De Niro is as good as it gets, particularly in this film. He was incredible playing Bill Hale. So just on a personal note, I think Killers of the Flower Moon is the best picture of the year. I think The Holdovers is the second. I think Oppenheimer is the third. But if there's somebody who's saying, "Well, I haven't seen anything, and I just want to be able to say I can watch the Oscars," then I would tell you to go watch Oppenheimer, because that's going to probably win, as I said, 8 Oscars, the most of any movie.
A couple quick baseball ones before we get you out of here. Where do you think Snell signs?
Great question, man. I don't know where the hell he's going. We were at Red Sox camp today in Fort Myers. And I talked to Alex Cora, my old buddy from ESPN, and we were talking with the team and rotation, et cetera. And then the news came down that Lucas Giolito apparently has, partially torn UCL, could need Tommy John. I said, "Oh my God." So I do think that obviously the market now increases for the Boston Red Sox to go get a starting pitcher, because quite bluntly, they're expecting Giolito to have a really good bounce back season. They signed him to a 2-year, $38.5 million contract. If potentially he gets Tommy John, which would be the second time in his career, it's devastating for the team if they have to have any hopes of contending. You're going to really expect a lot of Nick Pivetta and Garrett Whitlock and Brian Bayo and Houck. That's a lot to expect of those guys. So I would think they're making a call to Scott Boras right now. The Boston Red Sox are saying, Snell or Montgomery, what's the price going to be? Let's get this done, because the more that the days go on, the more expensive it's going to be. And for that Boston fan base, they know that rotation, even with Giolito, it was going to be tough to contend. Without him, it's pretty much ball game. So I don't know about Snell to Boston specifically, but one of him or Montgomery, I think, goes to Boston. I think Snell might go to.
Yeah, it's interesting where you have two big markets sort of in the same boat, the Mets and the Red Sox, where they both very thin on pitching. They both lost like the one pitcher they couldn't really afford. Not that I would put Giolito in the same boat as Senga, but the Mets really needed Senga to be healthy, and now he's got the shoulder fatigue. He's not going to make it. They have no starting pitching, and the Red Sox, same thing, where you break camp and you're in good divisions without starting pitching. That's a tough combination.
Yeah, it's really tough to expect the team to be able to overcome. Listen, I like some pieces with Boston. Obviously, AC is a great manager and a World Series winner as a player and a manager for good reason. I think Von Grissom's a good pickup. They can get him healthy. He's not going to be ready for opening day, but he's a guy that can hit. Their infield could be pretty interesting. You know, Costas hit 314 in the second half, hit 15 home runs, 45 games. He was great. So Devers is 3,300 home runs and 100 RBI. Those guys at the corners, you feel pretty good. Story's got to play every day at shortstop and be healthy. You plug in Von Grissom at second base, they're going to score some runs. But as you said, I couldn't agree more. They've got to get some more starting pitching, especially in that division.
Last one before we get you out of here. You're down in spring training. I think you said you're down in Florida. What's the one takeaway? Like, hey, I think this team is better than most people think, or I'm surprised that this team isn't going to be as good. Is there one takeaway?
Not yet. Like I said, we just saw Boston so far. Tomorrow I'm going to go check out the Minnesota Twins, and then Thursday we're going to go see the Rays camp, and Friday's the Philadelphia Phillies. So I'm excited to see all four of those teams. I think all of them, to varying degrees, could be in the playoff mix. The Rays people always discount and somehow win 90, 95 games. Yeah. Although I do think it's going to be tough because McClanahan's out for the season. They traded Glass now. Rasmussen's out for half the year. Like at some point, your pitching does get tested, but somehow Tampa figures it away. So I'm not going to discredit them. I'm curious about Philadelphia. I think the Braves are the best team in the division and probably maybe the best team in baseball along with the Dodgers. But the Phillies are always an intriguing team, and I do think they can bang and they can mash. And they just signed Wheeler to that new contract extension. That's great news for them. So I'm really curious what Philadelphia can do and make some noise. Good to see Bryce Harper hopefully on Friday. And the Twins tomorrow. Again, Cora was saying to me, he goes, Twins, that team can hit. They got some good lefties. I love Eddie Gillian, the young Canadian. I look forward to seeing him and Carlos Correa and Byron Buxton and all the rest of them.
The game's in good position because I think the rules changed. The rule changes last year helped as much as people, that the old school people don't want to admit it. The games were quicker. The games were crisper, and there's just so much young talent. I mean, you look at the Rangers who won the World Series. They're going to add Carter to the everyday mix. Wyatt Langford. I saw Skeens throwing the ball 102, 103 miles an hour. There's just so many good young players. There's so much talent. So I feel like the game's in good position.
Great point on the Rangers specifically. Somebody mentioned to me how Langford was doing so well this spring, and I looked up and I go, oh my God, that's right, he's on the Rangers. Evan Carter was 20 years old last year, 21 playing. Be cleanup for them. And now they got Langford. It could be the DH batting eighth. Like I looked at the line, like, oh my God. I do think that AL West is going to be a lot of fun because the Astros were a 90-win team a year ago. They go out and get Josh Hader. The back end of their bullpen is superb. But the Rangers are defending World Series champions, and the Mariners, their starting rotation, I would never bet against. So I think that West is going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Adnan, you're the best, man. Appreciate you making time here for a few minutes. Let everyone know where they can find your stuff.
Absolutely. Available on MLB Network here, obviously 5 days a week, full time with the season in full swing right now, spring training. And of course, my podcast, Cinephile, my pride and joy. Go to Apple Podcasts, and we'll be doing the Oscars live from Miami. Of course, Cinephile is produced by Meadowlark Media, my friends from the Dan Le Batard show. So Dan has very graciously invited me down there to Miami. So we're going to do a 3-hour pre-show, 4 until 7. And the Oscars are 7 until 10:30. You can watch all the action again on Dan Le Batard's YouTube page. We'll have clips on social, all the rest of it. So it's going to be a fun night. I look forward to it.
Adnan, appreciate it, man. Thanks again. Hopefully we'll catch up here down the road.
All right, my pleasure, Will. Thanks for having me, and good luck with Lombardi.
All right, that will do it. We'll be back Friday, talk a little more college hoops. Appreciate you guys listening. Rate, review, subscribe if you get a chance. See you Friday.